They were seeing things that they weren't supposed to see. It's the reason why all ancient history and all alien, I'm not talking about illegal aliens or foreign to the United States of Earthlings, I'm talking about extraterrestrial, and in my case, angelic technology, pre-Adamic angelic technology that basically was on the order of the Tower of Babel. Some people pronounce it Babel. And God literally confounded the languages. Now what do we have? We have universal translators. We've got, if you will, in singularity, and I'm jumping around to bring it right back to remote viewing, we've got the idea that God didn't make man good enough, so science in their all-knowing realm, and I'm saying that sarcastically, is going to build a better human. They're going to merge men and machines. You've had Ray Kurzweil on, singularity. Mm-hmm. And now they're talking almost gleefully about the end of what was created and in creating a triple helix, not a double helix, a triple helix DNA strand where now anything they imagine they can manufacture in a laboratory. So this is why the whole issue of quantum entanglement is so fascinating. You've got 72 HARP-like ionospheric heaters. By the way, HARP is only one form of technology. I don't know, do you remember seeing the article where 13 almost coherent neutron beams were seen going into the reactor?
Yes. Right.
Okay. Now, what people don't understand, and I was taught this by Sam Cohen, the inventor of the neutron bomb, okay? He just passed away, God bless him, but the point is that years ago I interviewed him, and off the radio, I had fascinating talks. You cannot have those neutron beams without something generating the neutron beams, and what you're seeing in the reactor, which would be called a neutron flux, this is as it's explained to me, I am not a nuclear physicist, is neutrons are flushing over the radioactive rods that are that's in what's called neutron flux. But those beams are interesting. They had to originate from something above the reactor. Now, a lot of people don't believe in electrogravitics, and they don't understand how the military, and I've been told this, that, you know, they're not basically 50 years in advance. They're literally, with the alien technology, they have stuff that's thousands of years in advance. Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. That which will be has already been. So in adopting that whole chain of thought, if there is something that's initiating a form of obviously beyond even what the tsunami did and the cooling did, in other words, helping it along a little bit, then you've got to ask your question, who's got the most to gain by Japan having this, what I believe will ultimately be looked at in history as the dissolution of Japan? This is not a billion-dollar problem for Japan. This is a trillion-dollar problem, and Japan is the second largest good night economy in the world, and what people don't realize is the economic aspect of what's happening in Japan is going to affect everybody in America, especially if you drive a Toyota. You're going to be in big trouble at some point. They make wonderful cars, but as you probably read the article, George, Toyota's going to shut down their plants here.
Well, they can't get enough parts. And Stephen, let me ask you this, too, while we're on the subject of all of this. I'm getting reports that FEMA has ordered millions and millions and millions of packages of storable food. Are you hearing this?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, years ago, during 2000, you know, right around the turn of the century, the Y2K thing, I was in the food business, so I really do keep my ear to the ground in that. It's funny, I get criticized, but, you know, when a certain freeze-dried outfit comes out and says, look, they don't have any number 10 cans, and then they say, but it's not the military buying it. Well, obviously the military may not be buying it, but there are a whole lot of underground military bases, and I think it's juvenile and naive not to think that there's a limited amount of long-term storage food available, and even some of the newer companies that have come online are having a hard time. I'm friends with one of the oldest freeze-dried companies in the United States, and I can, you know, tell you point blank that the raw materials are getting harder and harder to get. So, yes, somebody's buying it, along with body bags. We're hearing that, too. We're hearing of camps that have been inactive for years coming. And, you know, I think people have got to understand something. The military has the ability through the machinery using quantum physics and quantum entanglement to see what's going to happen. So when you get to the New Madrid and all the issues associated with this, 15 reactors on it, and George, you've probably seen, I hope the listeners will take the time to look it up, but the U.S. Navy put out a map of what happens when the New Madrid goes and the San Andreas Fault goes. Basically, the United States is divided into three separate, if you will, almost continents. And Montana, and everyone's always worried about Yellowstone going off. And I believe Ed Dames said the other night when he was on your show that basically Yellowstone and this part of Montana is going to be a place of refuge. So I must get 5 to 10 emails a day telling me, well, you're crazy to live there because Yellowstone's going to blow. And it is not going to blow. I'm just telling people it's not. And I think Ed kind of validated that. But here's what's going to happen. The New Madrid, for whatever reason, all this energy that's interfering with the ability to see into the future using alien technology, what they're having problems with are energetic particles, and people don't know there's things called hot neutrons as well as the standard temperature neutrons, and they measure them in million electron volts. So the thing is, the very fabric of time and space and whatever that which holds everything together, the gravitational effect that basically takes the protons, neutrons, and all the different subatomic particles that they've got more than they can even name right now, and that's not known to everybody, but there's an area of physics that only the initiates and the elite who are members of the Illuminati get to go into. That's where this stuff comes from. That's why the suppression of ancient technology, that's why the suppression of alien technology, we're being spoon-fed absolute nonsense, even in the realm of science. So as the HARP ionospheric heaters and all the different scalar weapons and all the different particle beam weapons are being used, that's literally ripping a rift in what we would call the time-space continuum. And I even saw, again, Kaku talking about stargates opening up. I don't know if you know this, but when we went through the big Norway spiral a couple of years ago, now they're seeing spirals again in Russia and in New Zealand. Did you see those two postings?
That's right. And ironically, they have HARP-type machinery in those areas, Stephen.
Yes, they do. And here's what's fascinating is that when you go to the old petroglyphs are some of the stone engravings, you'll find an interesting spiral pattern. It just looks like basically someone starts at the center and draws out, circles. What they're drawing is spirals. Well, how does somebody know about a spiral 6,000 years ago and prior to that? I have on my website, Steve Quayle, QUAYLE.com. If you type in map of the creator, this is a map that's literally an aerial map of the Earth in such detail, a topographic almost three-dimensional map. It's actually on stone. How does somebody get that perspective, 600,000 years ago when according to standard thinking, well, that just can't be. Well, it is. So the spirals that you see on the rocks and you see in Australia, all over the world, it's fascinating. Those are basically what are called Stargate markers. And so now even theoretical physicists are saying that the Stargates are opening, or they're at least openly acknowledging where they exist, where years ago they used to poo-poo them. Okay, what does a gate do? A gate either allows something to come in or keeps something out. One of the most interesting passages in the New Testament were the words of Jesus when he said, the gates of hell will not prevail. Well, I think it's fascinating that you take the history of what we'd call stargates, and by the way, the word can be angel gate too, and the angelic wars that obviously Zacharias Hitchin talked about. I'm writing about it in my new book, which is called Angel Wars, Past, Present, and Future.
When does that come out, by the way?
That'll come out in about 45 days. It's just been proofed and being laid out right now, but it's 480 pages, 682 footnotes, and what I've done is taken all of ancient history, the stuff you and I have talked about, and contemporary history, and all how the ancients looked at angels or messengers from the gods, and taken all the different, obviously the Assyrian and the Babylonian presentations on friezes, F-R-I-E-Z-E, and also petroglyphs, and all of the different scrolls, and all of the different things through history, and shown where we've gotten it, taking technology and bringing it right through to singularity. And the gist of it is, George, there's war. There's a war going on. Obviously, good angels, bad angels. People don't believe in that stuff. I know usually I get the guys that have had a little bit too much to drink about this hour saying, oh, that's all crazy. Well, it may be crazy to them, and they may even want to look at it, with a less gin-like approach, or without the vodka haze. But the point is that the ancients knew so much more. To think that these guys were a bunch of primordial cavemen clubbing, their mates with giant stones is something out of fiction. We're talking about technology that's so sophisticated. I have on my website the emblem that was found in Turkey by a woman's grandfather who was an archaeologist at Nemrut Dağ. If you go to my website and go to the illustrations of giants, dear friend of mine, Brian Snowdy, one of the best illustrators in the world, drew it as it was described to me. It shows an alien almost in a space attire. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but basically it's in the photo section, and yes. It's this really tall guy reaching down to this little person who is always emblematic in Assyrian and Babylonian and Chaldean drawings and carvings and everything. It's always associated with a king who's seated on a throne, and the subjects come up to his knees while he's seated. You know which one I'm talking about.
Yes.
So now you've got remote viewers looking into the future, and they're encountering spiritual warfare. They're encountering the battle in the heavens, and basically they're encountering the book of Revelation. Now, this presents some problems to the Illuminati. They work overtime to try and deny that the Bible is relevant or that Jesus is who the Bible declares him to be, but they absolutely believe that by paying attention to Lucifer, that's the one that they openly say they worship, and that's the one they attribute their bloodlines to, that they're going to be the victor. And this creation, this wonderful creation that God initially created, and I believe obviously that Adam and Eve were created 6,000 years ago, but before that there were civilizations on the earth. God destroyed those civilizations, the Golden Age, and that's another thing I'm trying to put into perspective for people. There is an answer, but when someone says that the earth is only 6,000 years old, and obviously I come up against a lot of the creation scientists in this, because I believe, and I believe the evidence is there, that there are when you talk about Atlantis or Hyperborea or Lemuria or Mu or Thule, Thule, or Shangri-La or Shambhala. These are all, if you will, not only oral traditions, but written traditions that come from the dateless past. You can go to Manetho. You can go to the great ancient historians. And Manetho's got a table of kings that goes back hundreds of thousands of years in Egypt. Okay,
Stephen? We're coming up to the break here. I want to talk with you more about that, 2012, when we come back in just a moment. And also, there's an ominous date out there, May 21st and October 21st. I want to get your take on those dates. There's a reason. We'll be back.